Armstrong, but also many other people have talked about religion and history of religion with this idea of evolution as being very illuminating, because it helps to understand a lot of religious impulses and religious teachings, in terms of like some of what I was saying with group behavior, and also the feelings, the fears, and so forth, and also things like trying to explain. Like, imagine if you're living in those conditions and you're trying to understand natural phenomena, right? And there's a couple of things that Michael Shermer talks about. Michael Shermer is an author who also happens to be ex-evangelical. That's how he grew up. And we've met as well. And he talks about a couple things. One is patternicity. Patternicity is when you connect the dots to try to explain something. And we have our brains are wired to do that. To okay, well this and this, well then it means this, so that you can understand something. And sometimes we do that when the dots really don't deserve to be connected. Mm-hmm. And you can connect them in lots of different ways to try to find meaning. And another thing that he talks about is agenicity.
Agenticity.
Huh?
Agenticity.
Agenticity. Mm-hmm. So that when something is happening, you attribute somebody doing something doing it. So, you know, the tree branch is shaking, so somebody must be shaking it. And little children will do this too. You know, if something's moving, and you'll ask them, you know, that they'll attribute some kind of entity or some kind of being, and even want to talk to it. You know, like speaking to the fire that's dancing, or the light that came on. And now humans are always you talk to their computer as if it's got some kind of agency. So that's very common, and it then translates very easily to the entities that we have in religion, right? So all of these inclinations that can easily be understood in a primitive people, in attempts to understand their world, are quite apparent when you look at the constructs that are in a religion. But let's talk about what a number of people have identified as some built-in brain functions that are part of the old brain, and Karen Armstrong talks about these as the 4 F's. And these are all things that are part of the old brain, that are the amygdala, the reptile brain. And the 4 F's are basically the drives that are the most ancient and the strongest, most powerful things that have been with us for millions of years and are still with us. And basically they are to feed. We need to feed. And another is to fight. Another is to flee when there's danger. And the 4th one starts with F. We might say to reproduce.
Fornicate.
Or fornicate.
Find a mate. I like fornicate, that's good.
Okay? Well, those 4 things are incredibly powerful. And they derive from this most basic part of our brain that is still there in the back of your head, base of your skull. And it's not going to go away. And so since then, we have also developed other parts of our brain. We now have the cerebral cortex in the front, which is where we do a lot of our rational thinking, and where also we have developed other capacities. We have other capacities now. We have more rational thinking. We have capacities for altruism, for being able to, we have mirror neurons, where we can understand more about what other people are feeling. And we have lots of evidence of these other capacities that we might call more mature or more socially functional, that we can also engage in, but which tend to take a little bit more time, like you need to pause a little bit in order to engage with rational thinking, as compared to the 4Fs. So we have both. And so now can you see how modern people have all these old functions that are still alive and well, that are powerful, and the new functions, and yet under stress, under threat, or if there's fear mongering, which ones are more likely to kick in? If you're not, if you really have no idea what's going on, and you don't have very much self-knowledge, and you're not really aware of any of this or thinking about any of this, which ones are most likely to kick in and dominate?
The old ones.
The old ones. Yeah, and some of and there's also gender differences, and this also affects relationships, and it affects the group dynamics. It affects everything, and including some of what you saw in my little video last night, American Meme, right? So it has huge implications. The whole world, that we have these Stone Age brains in our modern skulls. And the problem, we have a few problems, because as actually Karen Armstrong points out, if we were just still on the plains with these impulses, and we had like normal weapons, and we had these an impulse to fight, that would be one thing. But now, with our big brains and all of our skills for inventing things, we now have these advanced weapons. Now we're able to do incredible damage, right? So now we have an impulse. We have the same impulse to fight, but we have bombs and missiles and the capability of doing incredible harm. That's a bad combination. So basically, what she says, and which I think is a really good point, is that if we are going to survive, and if we're going to be what we're capable of, we have to make sure that we understand and use our more modern, our more recent capabilities of thinking and empathy and altruism and the mirror neurons and all these things, and acknowledge the 4Fs and take responsibility for them. Take responsibility for them. In other words, admit that you're an animal. Admit that you're an animal. These are not bad things. They're not bad things. If you're out in the street and there's a big hulking metal thing coming your way at high speed, called a bus, then you need to fucking move. It's the same as the saber-toothed tiger. And that impulse is a good thing. If you're hungry, you need to forage for food. That's good. Right? And if somebody is you're a mom I mean, the whole mama bear impulse, those of you that have kids, somebody's going to hurt your child, and you need to come in between them and the child and make sure your child is okay and protect them, and maybe even attack somebody that's going to hurt your child. The fight thing, that's good. That's fine. You're still a mama bear. And hey, lust is good too, or we'd all be dead, or we wouldn't be here if we didn't have lust. Lust is like hunger. It's a good thing. So let's acknowledge and claim all these 4 F's as being good things, and acknowledge that we are animals, and like the big A that they use for atheists. I just make it animal, Homo sapien. That's fine. But then also add on to that all the recent things that we have as well, because some of these things have also allowed us to do other things. Like, for example, as an animal on the plane that knows how to run and jump and do all these things in order to flee. Well, we've also turned that into ballet and modern dance and the Olympics, right? We can do all kinds of things with those same things translated. And so and fighting, maybe yelling and making noise to protect ourselves. We've expressed ourselves, and now and we sing and we write and we have poetry and all kinds of arts. So that's evolved into all kinds of things too. But those other the other things that our cerebral cortex allows us to do in terms of rational thinking means that in a lot of situations, what we also have to do, and I say this all the time, especially to couples that I'm working with that are learning communication skills and who have they have trouble understanding why they keep getting into fights and keep reacting, and they go, I love this person, why do I keep getting into these conflicts, and why do I keep just having these knee-jerk reactions, and then afterwards I feel so bad? Well, my first suggestion is just so simple it sounds stupid, and that is slow down. Slow down, breathe, give yourself a chance to choose how you want to react. Because those 4 F's kick in without much thought. And what we do have now, your thinking brain is your chance to give it a little more thought. And so that's what we need to do. And so now if you apply this to some of what you've been taught, and some of the programming that a little child gets about what to be afraid of, there's not much thought involved, right? But you can. That's what we have to do. We have to reclaim and engage all these other abilities that you do have, and take responsibility for those really primitive impulses. Take responsibility for them. They're not bad. Just keep them where they belong and use them when they're appropriate, in the form that they're appropriate. Like lust. You're not going to go out and rape people on the street. But Christians that are trained to repress their sexual feelings for years and years and years and years, are supposed to save it for marriage and all that, and the thought crime of ever thinking anything sexual every time you look at somebody, then suddenly on your wedding night you're supposed to turn it on. Well, I've had plenty of cases where people have told me that their wedding night was a disaster. And then they've had real problems in their Christian marriage because the sex has been terrible. You don't just turn it on all of a sudden after being told it was so bad. It's a crazy thing to tell you in the first place, that it was a bad thing. You don't have to, you don't have to rape people just because you think that they're attractive. The same way that you don't have to go in and eat food off of people's plate just because you pass a restaurant that smells nice. Hunger. So, okay, so where are we?